Alrighty, welcome. So today we are going to be talking about LIE. That is extroverted logic first, introverted intuition second. So TENI. Now, for this type, we're going to see someone who is constantly focused on whether or not something's working. So what do I mean by that, and why do I say that? Well, for extroverted logic being in the base position, you have the obviously you have the different kinds of logic. So you have TE versus TI. The difference between these is that TI works in frameworks and is looking to remain internally consistent. That's its agenda, is consistency. Whereas with extroverted logic, we're looking at situational logic. We're looking for results. So it's all about what works and what doesn't. What's more efficient, removing waste. So what I mean by this is with introverted logic, it's looking to formulate an approach that works in every situation. Now, of course, for an introverted logic type, they're going to run into situations where they won't be able to formulate these, they won't be able to rely on them because the situation has changed or there's something they haven't accounted for. And so because of that, they'll have to take the situation and the problem that it presents and work it in, or expand their logical understanding. That way they can account for that kind of situation. So that is something that you'll see with TI types, whereas TE types are looking to keep things situational. They would say, why would I have one approach? Why would I have one set of principles that I follow for every situation when things are constantly changing, when situations present themselves in different ways? And so the idea is, rather than coming up with a consistent set of principles in which one lives by, instead it's focused more so on, well, this is what works in this situation and this is what works in a different situation. Why would I limit myself to having one way of doing things when the situation is always going to be different? So that's the kind of approach that an LIE is going to take. That extroverted logic is going to be something that they're focused on a lot, which is all about where things work better, whether or not things are efficient, removing waste. So that's going to be their primary view on life. That's going to be a constant measuring process. I mean, if you watch LIEs speak, they're going to be constantly like asking the question, well, does this work or does this work? What works based on what scenario? And that's something that you'll see with them when you're asking questions or when you're talking to them. Instead of telling you how it's going to work all the time, or having some kind of idea of they're likely to say, well, it depends, it's situational, or well, in one situation, in a situation like this, I could do something like this, but in a situation like that, I could do something like this. And so it's more so going to be like, how am I supposed to describe it to you when I'm going to do something completely different based off the scenario? So that's essentially what an extrovert logic type is going to be focused on. And you can see this in a lot of LIEs. There's this constant measuring process of, what's the best way I can do this, or what's the most efficient route, or what makes the most sense. Not internally speaking, not logically consistent, in a logically consistent way, but more so, how can I go about doing this thing where it's achieved with the highest amount of effectiveness and the lowest amount of cost, right? So cost benefit analysis going on constantly with the LIE. And so that's huge and very central to who they are. Whereas you take like a ILE or an SLE and they have TE demonstrative, so you'll see that for them, they will test logically consistent principles by throwing out there occasionally like, yeah, but does it work? You know, is it practical? Does this actually work? Like, what evidence do we have of this kind of thing working? Does it work, or is it just a nice theory? Right? And so that's something you'll see with TE demonstrative, but what you're seeing with those types that still value TI is they're still pulling it back to whether or not it's building and establishing logically consistent principles that are solid. And so they use extroverted logic as more so as just a check for that. Whereas with LIEs, it's their primary mode of operating. You know, I know there's a lot of debate or a lot of confusion for some reason about Elon Musk's type, but I'm very, very confidently typing him LIE, and I could do a whole video on that if you guys want to see it. I think that some people say ILE, but I think that if you think he's ILE, you don't understand the demonstrative position. So yeah, there's a lot of for some reason there's some debate going on there. But if you watch Elon Musk, which I've watched so many of his videos, and I really admire him. So if there's anything interesting that he's doing, I want to hear about it. I want to hear him talk. I want to hear what he's planning, what his thoughts are about the future, things like that. I actually really love listening to him. So, but what you'll hear him do is he's constantly measuring. You know, he's constantly measuring what's more effective, what's more efficient. You know, I heard him go on a ramble for like, oh my gosh, like 30 minutes one time about like how the product, okay, so he was saying that like when you work on the product, you'll see the issues with the organization in the product. And so he was describing like how this like there was this lack of communication between departments and how he was forcing them to like kind of be rude to one another in a sense so that they could be as efficient as possible. And then not only that, but he started talking about how like when they went about trying to decide what parts to put in the Tesla, the vehicles, I mean, he was going on and on about like what's more efficient for the vehicle itself, right? And and what's the best way they can like the best parts for what they're trying to accomplish, and removing as much excess as possible in that sense, but also would talk about how that factors in with like okay, but what about like how we get these parts? Are we going to produce them in house? Is it going to be something that we have someone else produce and that we purchase? And then he was doing this cost benefit analysis of like what makes more sense in terms of like whether or not they should buy it or produce it, and whether or not that producing it themselves is worth the cost as far as the end product of the car, and like all this stuff. Like I can't even begin to explain to you because I'm TE polar, but I was very fascinated because watching him, you know, I was trying to do a very thorough analysis as well as just enjoying his videos, and I started noticing that he's constantly asking the question, what's more efficient, what works the best, what's you know, how can we save, how can we reduce excess. I mean, that's a constant thing in the LIE's mind. So if it took me 8 minutes to hammer that point home, I'm glad that it did. For the creative position for NI, you're gonna see a someone who's focused on what works best in or they're going to be focused long term. They're always going to be thinking about how things are going to pan out in the future. They're going to be thinking about like what things they need to account for later on. This isn't going to be something that's someone that's purely practical and efficient in the grounded sense, but more so they're going to be focused on how things are going to go over the course of time, what things they need to account for, etc. So that's something that's pretty big for them. Now, the reason I say that is because you have, remember, extrovert intuition and introvert intuition. And obviously, extrovert intuition is about possibilities, perspectives, different ideas, etc., alternatives. whereas introverted intuition is about narrowing these down into one coherent vision. So what you're going to see with an LIE is they're going to find extrovert intuition annoying to a degree. You know, like, why would I just keep exploring alternatives when I could be bringing it towards a coherent vision of what I'm going to do and where I'm headed? And so that's huge for the LIE, figuring out where they're going and what they're contributing to, which ties us back to extroverted sensation for a moment. SE is going to be pushing as hard as they can to eliminate the options that they have in front of them. You know, these are the different possibilities of what could happen. This is the one I want to happen, and I need to push as hard as I can to prevent these options from happening to ensure that the one that I want happens. So that is pretty central to the LIE as well. And the thing is, with this type, you know, they're going to have they're not going to have very good introverted sensations. So this idea of allowing things to kind of breathe, like this harmonization of not only like how much like even like what their body demands of them, like this is like you're pushing yourself too hard. Basically with an LIE, they're going to be pushing themselves too hard. They're not going to be giving themselves the rest that they need. They're probably going to be burned out. They're going to be focused so much on working and pushing towards that goal. Like for an LIE, it feels like they're running out of time. Like time is leaving them, and that they only have so much time to make happen what they need to make happen. And so that is huge. Sorry, I'm getting notifications. So that's huge for the LIE, and LIEs can be very stubborn. Like, just, this is what I want to happen, so we're going to make it happen. Obviously, they can be flexible. They can look for alternatives. They have that four-dimensional extrovert intuition. But if there's something specific that they've set themselves on for what's going to happen in the future, they're going to push for that. And if something presents itself as an issue, they're going to try to bulldoze past it. So that is huge for the LIE. So that's pretty central as well. We've got SESI, NI, NE. We covered that pretty quickly, but that's the best way I know how to put it. One thing I will say about LIEs, and I want to make sure I say this because I feel like I don't. I could have made the mistake of not mentioning this. So for LIEs, they can be pretty intellectual. That's actually something that is common for them, and with this type, I feel like there's a lot of famous LIEs, and I haven't typed these people personally, and I don't even watch them, so I couldn't really tell you if this is what I think. But I've heard that people think people like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris are LIEs, and so that could be an example. These intellectually oriented types of people, LIEs can be that way. The thing is with them though, they're gonna be taking in a lot of like information. They're gonna be doing a lot of taking in a lot of factual information, statistics. It's not unlikely for LIE to look to accomplish something or look to see how things are going to pan out and turn to statistics or turn to real world data, because for them it's like it doesn't matter if it's logically consistent or internally consistent. For them it's like, is that how it works? Is that what's happening? Like, if I rely on this information, is it how, like, essentially what's its, I'm really bad at explaining this, but what's its yield? So essentially the idea is, why would an LIE trust in information if it hasn't been already found, if it hasn't been found or discovered that information works well? You know what I mean? So for them, statistics, things that show like trends over time and how things have happened and unfolded and things like that, that's going to be pretty insightful for them, and they'll probably make decisions based off that type of information. So that they will probably lean towards facts, statistics, things like that. Yeah, and so they will be, they have four-dimensional TE. TE is about collecting factual information, so they will have a number of facts in their arsenal. That's actually going to support that quick-wittedness that they have as far as what things need to be done and when, and it's just in a way it's having an understanding or an awareness of uh, the uh, the things that happen in the world. That way, when they make decisions, they aren't missing some um, some critical information that could be a key variable in their decision or the outcome. So that is pretty big too. So that's why the LIEs do this. They will be taking in a lot of factual information. So that's an important point to make. Um, and now for FI. So this is the suggestive element. For introverted ethics, this is the suggestive. So it's going to be a type that doesn't really have a lot of relational nuance, any sense of who they should trust and who's worth spending time, investing time into. That's not something they have a keen awareness of. In fact, it's one-dimensional, and it's something they value greatly. So they're going to be seeking out someone or they're going to value someone who can look at someone and be like, that person's a waste of time. And this is where we see um, this is where we see the ESI come in handy, because I think ESIs get a bad rap for being pretty harsh in a sense, which obviously not all of them are that way, but they can be quick in their character judgments, and so that's something that for an LIE is needed. Like if it needs to be made clear, like this person is a waste of time, like this person's not worth your energy, right? And so that's really helpful for an LIE, because for them, they don't really know who's worth more time or attention, and that's they don't have a clear grasp of that, um, like finding good people, right? And so for the ESI, they can kind of filter that out, that no BS kind of approach. So um, I really like ESIs. They got this really grounded nature to them. I think of I think of Bones from Star Trek. I'm pretty sure he's ESI. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so he's funny. But anyways, so that's central to the LIE, because obviously this is their dual. This is someone that's going to be providing information that can do a lot of good for them. Um, also, another aspect of the LIE is the another aspect of the LIE is the is SI polar, which I mentioned that, but also FE role. So for FE role, this type is going to be so focused on like what's practical, what's efficient, that they're going to kind of miss how they're affecting the emotional environment, right? So that's something central to them as well. So sorry, I got distracted. There was a notification. So TE and FE are actually opposites, right? So when you're using TE, your FE has got to shut off, right? So because of that, they have to kind of subvert their worldview, which is TE, in order to access FE. So that's something that you'll see happen there with any of the types, actually. Like, I'm so involved in my abstract world that, or abstract landscapes and thought, that to focus on my body has to be a mental shift where I pay attention to sensations and how I feel and things like that. It turns off introverted intuition. So in the same way, same with TE and FE, and so you could tell a joke, or you could try to lighten the atmosphere, and the LIE might just pierce right past it, and this isn't intentional. Obviously, LIE recognizes how important it is to be like amiable and friendly and things like that, and to them, it's actually still seen as extremely practical and result yielding. Like you can't just you have to have a sense of warmth to you, which is how they differ to the ILI. ILI is not going to be as focused on that or as concerned about that. So, but yeah, so that's something you'll see. They can for a while they can become very warm. That's something that they can turn on, but once they turn it on, they can only do it for so long. Eventually, they'll go back to their worldview of extroverted logic. So, yeah, it is very well known that LIEs can have a warmth to them, but that is something that they have to turn on. And when they don't have that warmth, they go right back to being factual, result focused. What's working, what's not, what do we need to do? Like, this is what I'm here for. This is why I'm spending my time. And that's like, obviously, like I said earlier, they feel like they're losing time. So for them, it's really important to accomplish. So yeah, that's another aspect of that. I'm trying to think. Well, we can go into gamma values for a moment. So obviously, we have the different quadras of the Socion. One of those being gamma, which is what we're looking at here. We're looking at results focused, individualistic, uh, and focus on like expanding one's influence and pushing past any boundaries. That's sort of the focus of gamma. So um, for them, and obviously, they have introvert intuition, so when they're expanding their influence, it's towards a greater vision, a greater goal. Um, and when I say vision, I think vision sounds more like a beta word. Um, I think that for gamma values, we're going to be talking more about goals, about long-term goals, about yeah, achieving those goals. So the difference between these, we're going to see a few of them. We're going to see ILI, LIE, SEE, and ESI. So um, obviously, one thing I want to point out is that what I've noticed is with the duals, one of their defining set of values is based off their demonstrative and polar. So what do I mean by this? Well, I've noticed that for dual types, you you tend to one of the so like basically something I've noticed is that within my quadra, if I'm talking with people who aren't my dual but are still in my quadra, like my activator or my I believe mirror, um, when I'm talking to these types, I'll find that like we have difference in values. Like the way that we prefer things to be is not like the same. Whereas with the duals, it naturally is. And so that's why they say they're the same but different. One thing, one thing that you're going to see between LIE and ESI is that lack of introverted sensation. Um, while the ESI has introverted sensation and it's very strong and very aware of it, they're more focused on um, extroverted sensation. So with the LIE, same thing. They have SI polar. So they're gonna kind of disregard SI for its own sake. Both these people are gonna be focused on pushing towards what they believe in, about overcoming any sense of like challenge and things like that. However, the ESI is going to provide introverted sensation in a way that the LIE is going to be more receptive to. Um, and Yeah, and so that's going to be something you're going to see with that. And it can go vice versa too, because obviously the ESI has really bad extrovert intuition, and so the LI is going to be converting that extrovert intuition towards introvert intuition. So here's what matters. Here's the outcome that matters. We could survey alternatives all day, but like this is the one that matters, and that's something that the ESI can appreciate. So that is something you're going to see. That demonstrative slash that demonstrative polar position is key for the duals communication and their sense of values together. So now for the difference between these, we're going to see if we take like the SCE for example. SCE is going to be someone who has a lot of energy or drive towards accomplishing. They're going to push themselves akin to how an LIE would. The only difference is going to be the SE type is going to be a little bit more balanced with it because they are ignoring introverted sensation and a lot more nuanced as well. They're just going to perceive that information with a lot more depth. So for them, they'll likely, be more comfortable. I mean, the thing is, SC naturally pushes past obstacles and boundaries, and they dismiss like any limitations that they can find. They want to overcome those limitations, even if it's their own bodies. That's something you're going to see with SE types. However, with SE types, they're going to be balanced. They're going to know when it's too much. They're going to know their limits. They're going to be like, okay, look, I really do need to take a break. I need to relax. I need to chill. Like this is too much. Whereas an LIE is not going to be concerned with that. They're not going to be paying attention to that. And so next thing you know, they've chugged ahead so much and so hard that the next thing you know, they're shutting down. And so that's they're just falling apart from exhaustion. So that's pretty likely. Now, so yeah, so that's a difference you're going to see. That's their activator relationship. They're gonna contribute a lot to each other. So LIE talking to an SCE, the SCE is going to be wanting that extroverted logic from the LIE, and vice versa. The LIE is going to be taking in that SCE information. So, but like I said, you're focused on you're focused in gamma on results and relationships and like achieving a long-term vision or goal. So that's something that's very central to them. There's going to be a lot of information about like for these types, they're going to be like, okay, how much am I feeding to this person? The TEFI type of relationship, with TI valuing types, they're very much going to be like, oh yeah, we're friends, and like there's no expectation on the friends to like feed into them to a degree. Whereas there's going to be a measuring with the TEFI types of how much is this person feeding into me? How much is this person investing in this relationship, right? So that's the difference you're going to see. There's going to be a measure of investment of like your time and things like that. And so that's central to them, as well as coming into a coherent vision. So yeah, I think we talked about the quadra a little bit at the end there because I had some extra time. But yeah, I think we went into the LIE. I think I'm satisfied with where we were at. If you guys have any questions, you can ask in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, to like the video. That means a lot, really helps. I appreciate that. And we also have a Discord where we talk about socionics and a few other things. So go ahead, go to the description, check out that Discord. And if you want to get typed by me, I do typing sessions. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead, go to the link in the description and schedule an appointment. So perfect. Alrighty, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.